Pennywise, Billy, Hannibal Lecter, Michael Myers, Dracula.
Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Frankenstein.
All of these characters, and more,
make it the infamous genre of
horror. Welcome horror enjoyers to Horror 101.
We talk about all things horror.
My name is Finn.
And my name is Abby.
And today we will be talking about the subgenres of horror.
Now it's important to know, what exactly is horror?
Well, horror is a genre meant to scare, disturb, and frighten.
A great example of this is the movie It.
As the highest grossing horror movie of all time, this film perfectly encapsulates all the best aspects of horror.
Pennywise the clown scares his victims and viewers alike.
People are disturbed by the more gorish aspects of the film.
And the jump scares frighten those who dare to let their guard down.
The mix of comedy and horror makes for an amazing film that is loved by millions.
Now, horror began many years ago.
Since horror existed? Since stories existed, so did horror.
But let's narrow it down.
Gothic horror, the oldest and arguably most well-known subgenre of horror, with its films being what popularized the horror genre. The first horror film was released...
La Manoir de Beurre.
Or The House of the Devil in English.
It's believed to be the first horror film.
The most popular, however, is Dracula.
Known for its haunted and decayed settings, supernatural elements, and themes of isolation and confinement, Gothic horror is an iconic genre with iconic films within it.
Frankenstein is another Gothic horror staple.
Written by Mary Shelley.
When she was only 18 years old.
Next up,
slasher films.
Murder, violence, stalking, and lots of blood.
Indeed, this horror genre involves a killer or group of killers hunting people down.
The horror/mystery Psycho was the first big slasher film, and it continues to be very popular among horror enthusiasts.
Another movie that popularized this subgenre was Scream.
It changed slashers as a whole, with its meta-commentary of the genre in which it was a part of.
That it did. Billy and Stu really are the horror it couple.
The Scream series continues to be one of the most popular films of all time, with new movies continuing to come out.
Another popular slasher horror series is Halloween.
Not quite as high-grossing as Scream,
but still influential enough to be shown in the first Scream movie.
This iconic genre has many people's first thoughts when they hear the word horror.
Next up is my personal favorite subgenre, psychological horror.
With a focus on mental disturbance.
It can be traced back to Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft.
The previous mentioned Psycho is one of the first psychological horror films.
However, the first film was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari in 1920.
At one point, the genre popularly narrowed to a psychoanalyst.
Yes. I don't know how to say it either. It's psychoanalysis.
Yes.
Focusing on the analysis of the way people think, specifically the killers that many movies focus on.
One prime example of this is The Silence of Lambs,
where we see Hannibal Lecter's criminal mastermind escaping from jail as well as profiling another killer within the film.
We also get to see the criminal mind of Jack Torrance
in The Shining,
one of the most well-known horror movies of all time,
with many shows and movies
referencing
or straight up copying
its classic tropes,
including the twins,
the carpet,
and of course,
here's Johnny.
Next up is
supernatural.
Once again, Dracula prevails.
The history of supernatural horror includes this famed vampire. The beginning of the supernatural subgenre of horror includes Dracula, boosting the popularity of both gothic and supernatural horror.
Another film featuring vampires is Nosferatu, one of the original supernatural horror films.
Now, there is actually a newer version of this film released earlier in 2024.
It's already solidified itself as a popular supernatural horror film.
Along with Nosferatu, The Exorcist, The Ring, The Conjuring, and Annabelle are all popular movies within the genre as well.
One thing you might notice is the theme of possession within these works.
It's a very common theme within the supernatural subgenre.
Now, the subgenre that embodies the shock and disgust of horror.
Body horror.
If you know what gore is,
you know what body horror is.
Because it absolutely is full of it.
Blood, guts, and so much more make up this butchery subgenre.
This features grotesque or psychologically disturbing violations of the human body.
And sometimes other creatures.
The Fly and the Blob originated and popularized this subgenre.
With its 10 films grossing over $1 million, the Saw series is the 5th most popular horror franchise.
And it's a perfect example of body horror.
This franchise increases the amount of gore as the film continues.
And the budget grows.
In the first movie, there is body horror, but it's more implied.
With the audience seeing the terrified face of a man cutting off his own foot.
Rather than seeing the saw break his skin and his foot ultimately becoming detached from his body.
Seeing the reactions to body horror still counts as body horror,
Although it does get more upfront as the movies continue.
with the most recent movie doing what the first could not show.
A person cutting off their own leg.
Saw is not the only franchise featuring heavy body horror.
The honestly quite disgusting Human Centipede and its 2 sequels.
Delve into the darkness of the human mind.
And I don't even want to go into further detail on this franchise because it is truly grotesque.
So I'll just show you the poster instead.
So that's body horror.
The last subgenre.
Thanks for listening.
And watching.
Have fun enjoying horror with a newfound knowledge of the genre.
Bye.